Welcome to webinar platform at Parul University. I am fortunate enough to introduce our today's renowned speaker, Dr. Varsha Pokhaga ma'am. She is Vice Principal, Professor and Head Department of Pharmaceutics in Pune College of Pharmacy, Bharati Vidyapeeth, Pune. She has completed M.Pharm from Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai, and PhD from National Chemical Laboratory, Pune. Her research interests include development of affordable medicine using novel methods of drug delivery through oral pulmonary nasal route. Her focus is on development of nanoparticulate and lipid-based drug delivery system for targeted delivery of anti-cancer, antiviral, anti-tubercular, and anti-malaria drugs, as well as transmucosal delivery of protein and peptides and vaccines. Professor Varsha ma'am has authored more than 100 original research publications, 85 oral poster presentation in national and international seminar as well as conferences, and has 10 inventions to her credit as Indian patent applications and 1 granted PCT. She has executed several funded research projects from AICT, UGC, and DBT, and also has supervised more than 90 master students and 15 PhD scholars till date. Her teaching honors include 2011 Best Researcher Award from Bharati Vidyapeeth, 2017 Professor C.J. Shishu Award for Research in Pharmaceutical Sciences from Association of Pharmaceutical Teachers of India. Her work has been appreciated as Best Paper Award at several platforms. To cite a few, 1995 she received Best Paper Award by Dow Corning USA at 22nd International Symposium on Controlled Release of Bioactive Materials USA. In 2003, Indian Drugs Best Research Paper Award in Discipline of Pharmaceutics. In 2004, Research Project of the Year Award by 54th IPC Trust Pune. In 2009, Grant Award at Nanomedicine 2009, Second European Summer School in Nanomedicine held at Lisbon, June 12 to 16, 2009. In 2011, Best Paper Award at Indo-US Joint Symposium on Nanomedicine, Prospects and Challenges held at Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai. With this, I heartily welcome you, ma'am, at Faculty of Pharmacy, Parul Institute of Pharmacy, Parul University, to deliver a talk entitled Gold Nanoparticle Provide Platform for the Development of New and Efficient Diagnostic and Therapeutic Tool. Please, ma'am.
Very good morning to all of you. At the outset, thank you very much, Dr. Asha, for that kind introduction. I would also like to thank the principal of Parul Institute of Pharmacy and all the authorities of Parul University for inviting me for this today's webinar and giving me the opportunity to share some of my work with all of you. So thank you very much to all the faculty and students of Parul University, those who have joined this webinar. I will share my presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
You can see the presentation. Hello, Dr. Asha. Hello.
Yes, ma'am, it will come. Just we should wait for a while, for 1 minute. It will come.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Now we can see.
You can see the screen clearly?
Yes.
Yeah. Should I
Yes,
start?
screen is also visible, ma'am. Please.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, please.
So, a very good morning to all of you once again. So, today I thought I will like to share with you some of the research in the area of gold nanoparticles, and that's why I have designed my talk related to trying to understand whether we can use these gold nanoparticles as efficient carriers for delivery of therapeutic actives. So before that, on the screen, you can see this is the institute where I work, Bharati Vidyapeeth University's Pune College of Pharmacy. As all of you know, that this is one of the institute of repute, imparting pharmacy education in our country. And as per the latest NIRF ranking, it ranks at the 22nd position, All India rank. And it imparts pharmacy education for the undergraduate, postgraduate, as well as PhD level. We have several programs, that is B.Pharm, M.Pharm, PhD in 7 disciplines, as well as the PharmD program and the B.Pharm pharmacy practice programs. So our institute is known for academic and research excellence, and we are striving our best to move ahead in terms of attaining the excellence. So with this brief about my institute, the talk essentially I'm going to cover some of the basic introductory aspects, because I can understand that there will be several students, and for their understanding some very basic concepts of these gold nanoparticles I am going to give. And then we will move to the more interesting part, that is the applications, and there I will essentially discuss with respect to some of the work that we have done in my laboratory here, and the 2 case studies. With the help of 2 case studies, I will try to explain that how we can use this as carriers for the delivery of therapeutic actives. So current situation, as all of you know, that it is something different that we are experiencing for the past 8 months, and it is a new normal that now we are getting used to. And we all know that our life has changed since March, since India has gone into lockdown. Now the process of unlock is slowly going on, but still everything has not come to normal. So certainly now there are some things that we do not talk about, and some things that we are routinely talking about. So what we do not talk about is essentially going on vacation or going for shopping in the shopping malls or eating in the restaurants. Or going to movies. So this is something that I think we have forgotten for the last 8 months. But certainly especially we in the field of academics and in the teaching, what we are talking about is talking about online classes, online exams and webinars. And we in the field of pharmacy also are talking about 2 important aspects, and that is drug repurposing and vaccine. Everybody, all of us are eagerly waiting for the vaccine for COVID-19, so that hopefully we can get back to the old normal, right? So coming to pharmacy, this is where, it will take us to that drug repurposing. Still, we are at a stage where we do not have a sure shot treatment for COVID-19. And what people are just talking about is how we can repurpose the old drugs. Now, when we are talking about repurposing, obviously, the drug delivery technology becomes very important. So drug delivery technology is certainly very important to the pharma industry from the business point of view. And as per a recent market research, the global pharmaceutical drug delivery technology is projected to reach more than $2,000 billion by 2025. Currently at 2020, it is priced at around $30 billion at a compounded annual growth rate of 7.1%. So that is certainly a very lucrative business, and that is the reason that the focus of the Indian pharma industry, or rather the global pharma industry, has gone from drug discovery to drug delivery for many, many obvious reasons. From the researcher or formulator point of view also, the drug delivery is of great interest, because we are now looking at innovative technologies. We are looking at more newer methods of delivering the drugs, existing drugs which would have gone down the drain, but through the use of new delivery technologies or innovative platform technology, we can repurpose and certainly make them more safe and more efficacious to administer. So the challenges essentially are the same. That is how we can make the formulation more safe and more efficacious. So there are several challenges as a formulator. Maybe we need to improve the stability of the API, or we need to improve the solubility. And now what we are talking about is that effective targeting of the drug so that we can reduce the side effects or untoward effects of the drug. The new challenges that are coming up is because of the newer actives that are coming now, because through the genetically engineered protein drugs or genes or the biological therapeutics, we understand that now even the biologic therapeutics are gaining a lot of importance for cancer as well as for infectious diseases like COVID. And of course, patient compliance and cost effectiveness remain the prime importance at the bottom line though. So these are some of the challenges that we are going to face with respect to the drug delivery technologies. So when we talk about drug delivery technologies or innovative technologies, obviously the nanotech based delivery systems is what everybody is looking at nowadays. And we have several nanoparticulate carriers at our disposal, starting from the polymeric nanoparticles, the polymeric micelles, dendrimers, or the polymer drug conjugates, and the second class of nanoparticulate carriers, that is the lipid-based nanocarriers, which have also become very popular and which have also seen the light of the market, include the liposomes or the self-emulsifying drug delivery system, the solid lipid nanoparticles. And the third class of the nanoparticulate carriers are the inorganic nanocarriers, which include the quantum dot, the gold nanoparticles, magnetic nanoparticles, silica nanoparticles, as well as the carbon nanotubes. So these are also being now looked at for drug delivery applications, although they have been used for several years now for diagnostic or imaging purposes. Particularly gold nanoparticles now are being looked as promising carriers, and through this talk or through the next few minutes, we'll try to understand whether really gold nanoparticles can be used successfully for the delivery of therapeutic actives. So again, if you look at a recent survey, a comprehensive analysis forecast that was done, the global market for nanocarriers, if you look at it, it is very interesting for us as a formulator that by 2021, it is said that nanocarriers will account for 40% of the $136 billion nanotechnology enabled drug delivery market. So that is very, very interesting for all of us to know. And of the 10 nanocarrier technologies that are going to be studied, the liposomes and gold nanocarriers are going to account for 45% of the total addressable market. The liposomes are always being of much interest because we have products in the market which are liposomal based drug delivery, and liposomes are still going to offer the largest addressable market by 2021, which is of around $15 billion. So for the pharma industry, these figures are certainly of much interest. Coming to gold nanoparticles, also there is a very promising picture that is projected, that is that the global gold nanoparticle market is expected to generate a revenue of around USD 5.15 billion by the end of 2023 and growing at a very fast rate, a CAGR of around 17%, which is very, very significant for any technology, between 2017 to 2023. So this is what the market forecast is, and this certainly will can be a promising picture for us and for us to dive down into this particular technology, that is use of gold nanoparticles for different pharmaceutical and biomedical application. So gold nanoparticles typically have been used in several applications, not only the biomedical or medical and pharmaceutical application, but they have been significantly used for many electronics in the electronic industry rather, also in the consumer industry, in the textile industry, in the paint industry. So they have several application across several industries. But healthcare, it is said, will remain the largest end user of the gold nanoparticles. So in the healthcare segment, you can see here that this pie chart will give you that the targeted drug delivery is the segment where the use of gold nanoparticles is going to be the most, followed by the in vitro diagnostics, the catalysis, imaging, biosensors, bioprobes, and several other applications. So essentially what we understand that the application segment for the gold nanoparticles will remain in the field of diagnostics, medical imaging, and the therapeutics, which include the drug delivery as well as the diagnostic or the theranostics, what we may call it. And these will remain the dominant domains of healthcare with regard to the nanotechnology adoption. So gold, as we know, is called as a noble metal, right? So the bulk gold looks stunning. Obviously, it is lustrous and with a bright yellow color, and this has been, liked by the human race for several reasons. And the obvious reason is that we are lured because of its properties, very excellent properties with respect to conductivity, malleability, and inertness. And this has attracted the humans for obviously use as jewelry, and because of its value, it is also being looked at as from the investment point of view. We can see in the last few months itself how the gold rates have gone up so high. But this is what the bulk gold looks like. But if you look at nanoscale gold, it looks even more spectacular. So this is a picture of the stained glass window. Now the medieval artisans, it is said that gold has been alluring for art, architecture, jewelry, and for so many other purposes. But the medieval artisans were the first nanotechnologists, and the use of these metal oxides, particularly gold and silver, can be dated historically. We can see the reports as early as 4th to 5th century, where the use of metal oxides were done to obtaining such beautiful architectural pieces. And this is the example of stained glass. So the nanoscale gold can have different colors, can actually have all the colors of the rainbow, depending upon its size and shape, and that we will try to understand why it can have that. So the use of these metal oxides or nanoscale gold is not new essentially. Colloidal gold has been used for several purposes since a very long time. And in our Indian culture too, ancient Indian Ayurvedic medicine also reports the use of nano or colloidal gold, what is commonly referred to as the Swarna Bhasma. And Swarna Bhasma is known to be reported to have several therapeutic uses in the Sushruta Samhita, right from use for treatment of rheumatoid arthritis to diabetes to muscular dystrophy, and also it is known as a very good immunobooster. So again, in current times, we are talking about so many immunity enhancing, substances or agents, and Swarna Bhasma is known to be a very good immunobooster, and it is known to give immortality. So that is what is reported also in the Sushruta Samhita, and therefore we should be certainly proud of our culture of the Indian traditional medicine. So why gold nanoparticles? So gold nanoparticles essentially are having very good or indispensable qualities which make them useful for biomedical applications. The first is the ease of synthesis of the gold nanoparticles with varying size range, right from 1 nanometer to 200 nanometer. size as well as the shape with a very narrow particle size distribution. So you can imagine now that to get particles which are below 200 nanometer is such a difficult task in case of polymeric nanoparticles or other nanocarrier system. But here with the gold nanoparticles, we can have very easy route of synthesizing these gold nanoparticles of different size and shapes and with a very narrow particle size distribution, because we are not just worried about the size, but what we are more worried about always is the size distribution of a particulate sample. So we get a very narrow size distribution in case of the old nanoparticles. Second important aspect is the characteristic surface plasmon resonance band, which can be tuned simply by changing the particle size and shape. So the nanoscale gold looks different from the bulk gold, and it's obviously because of the change in the optical and the electronic properties that occur when the gold goes at the nanoscale level. Most important, the gold nanoparticle surface is amenable to bind to various biomolecules, and hence it allows for surface functionalization. Again, this is a very important aspect considering its use for targeted drug delivery. And more important from the biomedical application point of view are its biocompatibility and relatively non-toxic nature. Okay, so gold nanoparticles traditionally being reported in the ancient Indian medicine are known to be inherently biocompatible or non-toxic. And because of their size, obviously, they lead to enhanced cellular uptake. Again, this is something important when we talk about the efficacy point of view. So this property is going to be useful to us in terms of drug delivery and efficacy. So this is the picture of a gold sol that is being preserved in the British Museum, London, and this is the sol which was prepared by Michael Faraday way back in 1857. So you can imagine that how many years old this gold sol is. And if we visit the British Museum, London, this is a picture, sample of the gold sol that is being preserved, prepared by the famous scientist Michael Faraday. So Michael Faraday had used a system comprising of disulfide for preparation of this gold or colloidal gold sol. So now you understand that whereas the bulk gold looks lustrous, bright yellow color, the nano gold has a ruby red color. So gold nanoparticles, they are of great interest because we can decorate this particle surface with whatever we want. So we can put different drug molecules on its surface, we can attach different ligands of different types on its surface, we can go for a coating on the surface, any kind of polymer coating we can go, for example like a PEG coating, polyethylene glycol coating, we can attach an optical probe, or we can attach a PET isotope. This is particularly for the imaging or the diagnostic purposes. And gold nanoparticles per se are also themselves inherently used for phototherapy, where if you shine the NIR laser light, they are known to cause heating, local heating, and thus cause the destruction of the surrounding cells. So there are several applications that can arise by simply decorating the surface of the gold nanoparticle with the kind of molecules that we are interested in. So we can really design these surfaces very nicely and see to it that we have a system which can be safe as well as efficacious. So the different types of, as I said, there are different shapes of gold nanoparticles that we can have, and these are the different types of gold nanoparticles which are being commonly used for different applications, starting from the gold spheres, the gold nanorods, and these three are the shell type, which include the cages, the silica core with a gold shell. These are used for essentially the photothermal therapy, and the SERS, the gold with a glass shell, that is the scattering enhanced Raman spectroscopy. So we know what a goldsmith does for us, prepares different beautiful jewelry items, but this is what a nano goldsmith can do for us. You can see here the beautiful shapes of the gold nanoparticles that are possible, and depending upon the size and the shape of the particle, the second picture here, you can see here that we can have an array of colors. As I said, at nanoscale level, we can tune the properties such that we can have a rainbow of colors are possible from one simple gold sol, depending upon its size as well as the shape of the particle. So you can see here that starting from a simple sphere to a single crystal nano gold rod, you can have different shapes like the decahedron or a double shell or a box type, cage type, double tube, porous tube. So this all is possible. We can play around with the geometry of this particle as we want, depending upon the application that we are looking at. So what are these optical properties? The change that occurs when the gold is taken to the nano level is because of the change in its optical and electronic properties. So these optical properties arise because of the interaction of the incident electromagnetic radiation with the metal nanosphere. So when the electromagnetic radiation is incident onto the metal nanosphere, there are field electrons in these metals, particularly the gold, silver and copper, and which are polarized, as a result of which a dipole is induced and which oscillates in phase with the electric field of the incoming light. So because of this, we get a typical surface plasmon band in the visible spectrum. So this essentially opens a whole lot of imaging applications as well as the diagnostic application. If the shape of the particle is in the form of a rod, then the dipole is induced in two directions, the transversional and the longitudinal oscillation. So the factors which are going to influence the surface plasmon absorbance are essentially the particle size and the shape, the surface functionality that is there on the particle surface, the temperature and the solvent that is used during the synthesis. So a simple UV visible spectra, if we look at, then this is a typical surface plasmon that we will get depending upon the size. So as the size increases, in this picture you can see from 9 nanometer to 22 nanometers to 48 to the 99 nanometers, there is a shift in the lambda max of the surface plasmon band. So here is a picture. You can see that depending upon the size, the color of the gold sol is going to change. And this is obvious because as the size changes, the scattering intensity of the particle is going to change, and that is what will result in different colors of the gold sol. This is observed in case of a particle which is spherical in shape, so you get only one lambda max or one surface plasmon band. If the particle is in the form of a rod shaped particle, then depending upon its aspect ratio, as the aspect ratio increases, again you will see that there is a shift in the wavelength. So in case of gold nanoparticles, there are two lambda max that are observed. One is observed typically around 520, and the higher one, the longitudinal plasmon band, is observed above 650 nanometers. So that is how a typical surface plasmon band will look in case the particle is in the shape of a rod. So coming to the basic chemistry, the synthesis of the metallic nanoparticles. the synthesis is extremely simple. There is no rocket science that is involved here. So that is the beauty of this essential technology, or you may call that. The basic aspects are extremely simple. There is no complexity that is involved in the whole process, and therefore this is something which can be of real interest. So the chemistry is that you have a metal electrophile, which is with the help of a reducing agent, which can transfer its electrons to the electrophile and thus leads to the formation of a nanoparticle, a neutral metal particle in the form of a nanoscale or a nanoparticle. So the metals can range from gold, platinum, silver, palladium, cobalt, iron, anything it can be, and the reducing agent could be citrate, borohydride, alcohols, or any other reducing agent typically. So there is no rocket science that is there, is simple chemistry that is involved. So I showed you the gold sol that was prepared by Michael Faraday, wherein he had used essentially a disulfide as a reducing agent. But the first scientific report in the form of a publication for the gold nanoparticle cites the Turkovich, the famous Turkovich process, which was reported in 1951 for the colloidal gold nanoparticle synthesis, and which reported the use of sodium citrate, where the gold salt or the gold chloride was reduced using a chemical reducing agent such as sodium citrate, using a similar kind of reactor, a simple reactor that can be used for any other synthesis purpose. So even in terms of technology requirement, there is nothing, different things that we require for preparing. A simple reactor is good enough for preparing the gold sol. So the Au in +3 state gets reduced to Au0 state, resulting in the formation of these gold nanoparticles. So the synthesis approaches for preparation of the gold nanoparticles, there are several approaches starting from the chemical methods that we just discussed. These are the solution-based synthesis using different chemical reducing agents such as the citrate or the borohydride, etc. On the other end, you have the physical methods. Now, the chemical methods are essentially the bottom-up approach, whereas the physical methods include the top-down approach, such as maybe ball milling, the thermal evaporation, lithography, or the vapor phase deposition. But more interest, and you will find more publication in the area of the biological methods that are being used for the synthesis of gold nanoparticles. And the biological methods include the use of plant extracts. So these are a few examples that I have given here, but there are several if you see in the literature that can be used, such as lemongrass, coriander, amla, neem, mango. All these are being used for the preparation of gold nanoparticles. The different microorganisms, which include viruses, bacteria, fungus, yeast, diatom, all these are being used for the preparation synthesis of gold nanoparticles, and also different biomolecules belonging to the category of enzymes or peptides, the nucleotides such as DNA, amino acid, lipids, and the polysaccharide. So my interest has been typically in the area of use of different biomolecules for the synthesis of gold nanoparticles, because we are looking at pharmaceutical applications, and therefore for us biocompatibility becomes the prime requirement, and this is why to work in this area is of my interest. So here is an example I have shown, typically the biosynthesis of gold nanoparticles using plant extract. And here in this paper, they have cited the use of lemongrass, for the preparation of gold nanoparticles, because plant extracts have been found to reduce the metal ions and subsequent formation of the nanoparticles, which are occurring extracellularly, and this, very easily we can obtain the gold nanoparticles. So this is the UV visible spectra of the gold nanoparticles, and here you can see that depending upon the size, the percentage of the extract that is being used, from 4% to 6% to 10% to 20%, how the change in the size and the shape of the nanoparticle has occurred. And you can see that why I have shown particularly lemongrass, because this is known to give very nice triangular shaped or prism shaped, gold nanoparticles. So just by the size control can easily be obtained just by having a control over the percentage of the extract that is being used. So why biosynthetic approach to nanomaterial synthesis? Obviously, because the physical and the chemical methods of nanoparticle synthesis, they are quite hazardous, they are not eco-friendly, they are quite cumbersome, and also the product that is obtained is not very stable. So they yield essentially unstable nanoparticles, which eventually aggregate and the system becomes completely unstable. So there is a need for reliable, eco-friendly and economic synthesis of nanoparticles. And for our application point of view, there is obviously a need for non-toxic and biocompatible nanoparticles. So what are the factors that may control the size and the shape? The average size will be dependent upon the reductant concentration, the polymer composition that is used, maybe the stirring rate and the temperature, as well as the time. The size distribution essentially may depend on the rate of reductant addition and the stirring rate. And the stabilization of particle is only attributed to the solution composition. Now coming to the interesting part for us, that is the applications of these gold nanoparticles. So there are several therapeutic biomedical applications of the gold nanoparticles, including the therapeutic applications, wherein they have been explored for drug delivery, protein delivery, vaccine delivery, as well as the gene delivery. Per se, the gold nanoparticles themselves act as a heat source, and therefore they are used in the treatment of cancer, as cancer hyperthermia. And also more interesting are the diagnostic applications for bioimaging, biosensors, and as theranostics. So here you can see that you can, decorate your nanoparticle surface with whatever molecule of interest, be it a protein molecule, a DNA, or a lipid, or a carbohydrate, or a targeting ligand, or a drug. Whatever we want, we can just put it on the surface depending upon the different application that we are looking at. Now, for the purpose of this seminar, essentially, I have kept myself limited to focusing on the drug delivery applications, because time may not permit to cover all this in detail, but just I will give a flare of some of these applications also. So these are the different, just a few biomolecules that I have listed here that we have explored in our lab, which include chitosan, which is used as a reducing or a agent as well as a stabilizer, wherein we have explored it for the delivery of peptide vaccine and also for topical delivery. Then another very interesting reducing agent we have explored is the Gelan gum, which is used for as drug delivery for anti-cancer drugs. Another polymer, that is porphyrin, which is a marine polysaccharide, again used for drug delivery application of anti-cancer drug. Enzymes such as serratiopeptidase used for anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory application. Another polysaccharide, mannane sulfate, again which is used for wound healing and also for anti-cancer activity. Then glycyrrhizine, where we have explored it for antiviral, and pectin for antiviral and anti-cancer. So these last two are applications which I will, take it up as case study examples. So it was just a few days back, in fact 2-3 days back, that the Nobel Prize have been declared for 2020, and the Nobel Prize in medicine for 2020 was awarded to the scientist who discovered hepatitis C virus. In fact, when this news came, then I thought that let me orient or take the examples of our work wherein we have looked at liver targeting, because these three scientists, essentially Harvey J. Alter, Michael Houghton, and Charles Rice, they were jointly honored for their decisive contribution to fight against blood-borne hepatitis, which is a major global health problem. So it is now understood that liver diseases are a major global health problem, and these three essentially constitute the major of the liver diseases, that is the liver cirrhosis, viral hepatitis, and hepatocellular carcinoma. So these are frequently encountered in clinical practice with a very high morbidity and mortality worldwide. The recent report cites that there were around 2 million deaths worldwide which have been recorded owing to the liver diseases. So obviously finding treatments that can slow the progression or reverse the liver disease is of top global health priority. And therefore I thought that let me take the examples wherein we have tried to use these gold nanoparticles as carriers for liver targeted drug delivery. So what are the drawbacks of the current pharmacotherapy? We know that many diagnostic and therapeutic drugs have been developed against these diseases, but most drugs are taken up and very rapidly cleared from the circulation by the liver without any specific targeting. Now, what is meant by specific targeting, we will try to understand. The inability to deliver sufficient amount of drug to the diseased cells, and obviously because of this, therefore, high doses of the drug need to be administered, which obviously will lead to more adverse effects. The distribution of the drugs to the healthy cells again is what is going to lead to the untoward effects. So this is essentially are the drawbacks of the current pharmacotherapy that are experienced in the clinic. So the solution to this is the targeted drug delivery, and targeted drug delivery is a very good strategy that can selectively and preferentially deliver the therapeutic agents to the target site concurrently, obviously failing the access to the non-target site. So you have a nanoparticle which can be loaded with the drug, and then whatever the targeting molecule, we can put it on the surface such that it can be recognized very easily at the target site of interest. Now, when we talk about the liver targeting, there are two main approaches, as there can be for any other organ targeting. One is the passive targeting and the other is the active targeting. Now, the passive targeting is through the physicochemical, by modulating the physicochemical properties of the carriers, which are essentially related to the size and the surface properties, and also may include the specific route of administration. So we know that the size related uptake can be there depending upon the size. The uptake at different levels can vary, and also depending upon the surface charge, the specific uptake by the cells can be observed. But this passive targeting is essentially a very non-specific approach, although it may lead to the nanoparticulate accumulation in the liver. The effect may not last for a long time. So what is essentially of interest is the active targeting approach, wherein the different targeting ligands that can recognize and bind to certain type of cells is of great interest. So here it is a specific targeting to the specific type of liver cell, and the uptake by the specific type of liver cell essentially minimizes the non-specific effects on the other type of cells in the liver as well as the other organs. So our general understanding is that when we say liver, the cells that come into our mind are the hepatocytes. But you can see here that there are almost 5 different type of cells that have been identified in the liver. The first are the hepatocytes. Then if there is a liver cancer, then there are the hepatocellular carcinoma cells. Then there are the hepatostellar cells, the Kupffer cells, and the endothelial cells. So the Kupffer cells are essentially the macrophages or the scavenger cells. And essentially when any carrier or particulate carrier is administered, the phagocytosis occurs through the reticuloendothelial system, and these are the Kupffer cells which are responsible for the phagocytosis. So this is very, very non-specific uptake that is going to occur. Now it has been identified that there are different receptors that are present on different types of these cells. So in the boxes below here you can see that in case of hepatocytes there is the ASGPR, that is acylglycoprotein receptor, the glycyrrhizin or the glycerinic acid receptor, and the scavenger receptors. The hepatocellular carcinoma cell, there are almost 8 different types of receptors that have been identified till date, starting from the acylglycoprotein, the folate, the retinol binding protein, then the heparan sulfate, AFP, VEGF, A54 peptide surface marker, and so on. The stellar cells, again, there are 3 specific receptors that have been identified. The Kupffer cells essentially have the mannose receptor and the scavenger receptors, and the endothelial cells again form the phagocytosis cells and contain the scavenger receptor. So depending upon the cellular target, the different targeting ligands till date have been used. Several like folate or the AFP antibody, mannose, etc. have been explored for the targeting of these different receptors. So this is the first case study that I will discuss, and that is where we have made use of gold nanoparticles which are capped with glycyrrhizin for liver targeting of an antiviral drug. So this paper we have reported essentially the work wherein we have explored the use of this glycyrrhizin capped gold nanoparticles for liver targeting and its in vitro and in vivo biodistribution study. So what are the challenges for the treatment of hepatitis B? Again, hepatitis B is a very fatal disease, can be very fatal, and an estimated 292 million people have been chronically infected with around 8,87,000 deaths each year due to hepatitis. And till date, more than 2 billion people have been infected by the hepatitis B virus. So we can see that essentially this is a global health problem. And to treat hepatitis B more effectively, a large fraction of the administered drug should reach the hepatocyte. So the viral infection that occurs is essentially in the hepatocytes specifically and not the other liver cells. So the inability of the drug to attain effective or sustained level leads to ineffective viral suppression, which obviously will lead to the drug resistance. So what was the strategy for this hepatocyte targeting? So to treat hepatitis B more effectively, a large fraction of the administered antiviral drugs should reach the hepatocyte to achieve the therapeutic levels and to reduce the toxicity to the non-hepatic tissue. So in 1991, Negeshi et al. They revealed the presence of specific binding site for glycyrrhizin on the cellular membrane of the hepatocyte. So interestingly, glycyrrhizin receptors are present only on the hepatocytes and are stable in number. So although there are acylglycoprotein and the scavenger receptor, but with respect to hepatocyte, the glycyrrhizin receptor is specifically present only on the hepatocytes. Therefore, when we looked at the literature, we found that there was no report on the use of glycyrrhizin as a reducing and a stabilizing and a targeting agent using gold nanoparticle, and therefore we thought that it will be good to explore whether we can get efficient targeting using gold nanoparticle exploring the glycyrrhizin receptor. So the objective here was to explore the potential of gold nanoparticle for the delivery of the antiviral drug that we selected here was lamivudine, and to explore the multifunctionality of glycyrrhizin as a reducing, stabilizing and targeting agent. So it is a trifold application that we are looking at using just one single agent. To further investigate the liver targeting potential of the glycyrrhizin reduced gold nanoparticles and to compare with them with the citrate reduced gold nanoparticles. So lamivudine is a antiviral drug, belongs to BCS class 3, available in the form of a tablet as well as in the solution, and it's an approved indication for HIV as well as chronic hepatitis B. So the synthesis of glycyrrhizin capped gold nanoparticle was a pretty simple one pot method, wherein we have taken the hydroorochloric acid and glycyrrhizin in different concentrations at the pH 10, heated the solution for 5 to 10 minutes, and that resulted in a ruby red color solution of the gold sol, which represented the glycyrrhizin capped gold nanoparticles. So we went for the characterization, physicochemical characterization, as well as the stability of these prepared gold nanoparticles, which were obtained by the reduction of using glycyrrhizin as a reducing and stabilizing agent. So the surface plasmon spectroscopy or the UV visible spectra of the glycyrrhizin gold nanoparticles, we use different strength of glycyrrhizin starting from 1% weight by volume to 0.05% weight by volume, and it was seen that at 0.1% the maximum intensity of the surface plasmon band was obtained around 520 nanometers. Okay, and therefore 0.1% was considered as the optimum strength of glycyrrhizin which we can use. So you can see that how less concentrated or less amount of the reducing agent is required for the preparation of the gold sol. Further on, the high resolution TEM images could see that the particles were spherical in nature and the particle size obtained was around 17 nanoparticles, and in the insert you can see that it's a pretty narrow distribution that we have obtained, and the zeta potential was around minus 32 millivolts. Now this is obviously because of the glycyrrhizin, which is a saponin, has hydroxyl and carboxyl groups, and there are chances of the free carboxyl groups on the surface which render a negative charge to the surface. The XRD pattern indicated that it is a typical gold which is in highly crystalline form with a typical face-centered cubic atomic structure with the one having of highest intensity, which confirmed that it is a face-centered cubic structure. The particle size discrimination by these three methods were compared from PCS photon correlation, the TEM, as well as from XRD. Based on this, using the Debye-Scherrer equation, we can also get the particle size, and you can see that all three methods have given us the same particle size range. So it's pretty clear that we have got particles which are around 17 nanometer in size, spherical in nature. The FTIR spectroscopy revealed the characteristic bands for hydroxyl and the carboxyl groups, although with a reduced intensity and slight shift because it has got anchored onto the gold surface. The stability studies were done for these glycerizin reduced gold nanoparticles in different pH conditions varying from 2 to 10 nanometers. We just have to look at we have to keep the gold sol in different pH for considerable amount of time, and then we have to record its absorption band, the surface plasmon band, and you can see there that different pH conditions there is no change in the surface plasmon band, which indicated its stability in the pH range of 2 to 10. Also, we have looked at its stability in the different electrolytes, salt solution sodium chloride of different molar strength, where again it was found to be pretty stable, and at a temperature of 4 degrees Celsius for 1 month and at room temperature for 4 months, the particles did not show any aggregation as such. Further on, we went on to loading of the drug onto the synthesized gold nanoparticles. So the glycerizin cap gold nanoparticles were taken and they were incubated with the drug, that is lamivudine, for 24 hours at room temperature, following which we could get the lamivudine loaded glycerizin cap gold nanoparticles. These were the drug-loaded nanoparticles were again extensively characterized for their physicochemical properties, its stability, in vitro drug release, in vitro cell line studies, and the in vivo tissue distribution studies. So here again you can see the UV visible spectra. The blue is for the glycerizin reduced gold nanoparticles, and the green curve is for the lamivudine loaded onto the gold nanoparticles. So there the intensity, the lambda max remains the same with the decrease in the intensity, which is quite obvious because the surface of the gold is now covered further with the lamivudine. And this is the HRTM image, which indicated that there is not much change in the size after the loading of the drug onto the nanoparticle surface. So you can see the SPR band 523 of the glycerizin reduced gold nanoparticle, and not much shift after loading of the drug. The particle size also has remained pretty much the same. The zeta potential from minus 32 has changed to minus 25 millivolts, obviously because of the cationic drug which has got anchored onto the surface of the negatively charged particle. There is a change in the zeta potential, which itself indicated that there is sufficient loading of the drug onto the nanoparticle surface. The loading efficiency was found to be around 72%. The FTIR of the lamivudine loaded gold nanoparticle showed the presence characteristic NH and the hydroxyl band which are present in the drug, that is lamivudine, but they were reduced in intensity also with a slight shift occurred, which itself indicated that these two functionalities are taking part in getting anchored onto the surface of the gold nanoparticle, either through the hydrogen bonding or through electrostatic interactions. The drug release, in vitro drug release, was carried out using the dialysis bag method, and we could see here that at pH 7.4 there was very less release at the plasma pH. However, at the pH 4.5 acidic pH, which could be the pH that is present in the endosome, so once the particle is taken up, endosomal or lysosomal uptake is there, it will go inside the endosome where there is a acidic pH range of 4.5 to 5, where the drug release is going to take place. So this indicated that it gives a pH dependent sustained release. Coming to the in vitro cell line studies, the cell viability studies were done in the HepG2 cells. And here you can see that we have done the comparison with a control, the glycerizin reduced gold nanoparticles, lamivudine per se, the free drug, and the lamivudine loaded onto the gold nanoparticles. So what we have observed that by changing the concentration of lamivudine, there was no significant difference in the survival rate of the cells which receive only lamivudine or the lamivudine capped glycerizin. So this indicates that they are quite biocompatible. The in vitro cellular uptake studies was done using confocal laser scanning microscopy. And here what we have done, we have labeled the gold nanoparticles by fluorescent dye, that is FITC. So the leftmost picture is of the citrate reduced gold nanoparticles. These are the glycerizine. The middle one represents the glycerizine reduced gold nanoparticle, and the rightmost represents the lamivudine capped onto the glycerizine gold nanoparticle. So you can see just from the intensity that whereas the citrate reduced gold nanoparticles, the fluorescence intensity was quite less as compared to the glycerizine capped gold nanoparticles, where considerable fluorescent intensity indicated that this FITC labeled lamivudine gold nanoparticles and the glycerizine gold, they were localized in the hepatocytes to a very high extent as compared to the citrate reduced gold nanoparticle. So our objective or strategy that we can use glycerizine as a targeting ligand successfully for hepatocyte targeting was established. The in vitro cellular uptake, the CLFS give us the qualitative aspect. Quantification further was done by carrying out the studies using the GFAS, that is the graphite furnace atomic absorption spectroscopy, where we can quantify the amount of gold. And we could see here that the intracellular GL gold nanoparticles and lamivudine gold nanoparticles was 2.6 times that of the citrate reduced gold nanoparticle. So this again clearly established that the strategy was successful in targeting the nanoparticles to the hepatocytes. The liver, the tissue distribution, in vivo tissue distribution studies were done in the Wistar rats, and this gives us the distribution in different organs, that is the liver, spleen, blood, heart, brain, and the kidney. The black curve essentially represents the citrate reduced gold nanoparticles. The blue curve is for the glycerizine reduced gold nanoparticles, and the red is for the lamivudine loaded gold nanoparticle. So we could see that there is considerable amount of the drug that is present in the liver when they are given with the glycerizine reduced gold nanoparticles. Whereas in case of citrate reduced, the amount was pretty low in case of liver, but there was a high concentration of citrate reduced gold nanoparticle found in the blood itself. So they were not able to reach to the target site, that is the, or rather they were not that much taken up by the target site, that is the liver. And whatever was taken up by the liver, you can see there is a rapid decline in the dose that was observed in case of citrate reduced. But in case of the glycerizine reduced gold nanoparticles, they were retained for almost 24 hours. Up to 24 hours, we could see the levels in the liver. So this again established the strategy works, that to use glycerizine as a reducing agent, as a stabilizer, and as a targeting ligand. The quantification again here was done for the in vivo tissue distribution studies, and you can see here that the amounts in liver are considerably high as compared to the spleen and the blood. So the amount of glycerizine reduced gold nanoparticles was almost 1.16 fold higher than the citrate reduced gold nanoparticles. But what is more important is that that amount was constant with around 80% throughout the study period of 24 hours. It did not decline. Okay, so now the second disease that we thought we will look at is the liver cancer. So this second case study, essentially we have looked at another reducing and stabilizing and targeting moiety, wherein we have looked at the use of pectin capped gold nanoparticles for the delivery of the anti-cancer drug, that is doxorubicin, to the hepatocarcinoma cells. And more important, what we have tried to look here is to get an insight or establish rather the mechanism of the cellular uptake. So, in case of the challenges that are there for the treatment of hepatocellular carcinoma are immense. Liver cancer, we know today, is the leading cause of morbidity and mortality. Around 7.8 lakh deaths worldwide occurred in just 2018 as per the WHO report. It is the fifth most common cancer in men and seventh most common cancer in women. So, despite of many severe side effects, chemotherapy per se still remains the mainstay for the treatment of liver cancer. And doxorubicin hydrochloride is widely used for the treatment of liver cancer. So, to treat hepatocellular carcinoma more effectively, a larger fraction of the administered drug should reach the hepatocyte, because the inability of the drug to attain effective and sustained level in the hepatocyte leads to the increased dose of drug, which obviously leads to the side effects and drug resistance. So what was our strategy for HCC targeting? Now the hepatocellular carcinoma cells, we can see that the most abundant of the receptor is the acylo-glycoprotein receptor, which are present on the surface of the hepatocellular carcinoma cell. So these acylo-glycoprotein receptor, they have a high binding affinity to a broad range of molecules which contain the galactose or the N-acetyl galactosamine residues, which include lactose, galactoside, galactosamine, lactobionic acid, etc. And all these can be conjugated to the surface of the nanoparticle for active target. So this is a receptor which is overexpressed in the HCC or the hepatocellular carcinoma cell. And more important, these have easy accessibility from the vascular compartment and the ability to internalize large molecules via the receptor mediated endocytosis. So it is an active uptake process which is a receptor mediated endocytosis. So therefore SGPR can be targeted to achieve site specific drug delivery. So main here our objective was to better understand the mechanism of uptake of this DOX loaded pectin reduced nanoparticles by the HCC cells. Again, as all of you are aware, doxorubicin hydrochloride is a BCS class 3 drug and it has been approved indication for several types of cancers and mainly recommended for the hepatocellular carcinoma. So again, the synthesis is similar to what we have seen in earlier case. The gold salt is reduced using the polysaccharide here pectin, which contains essentially the alpha-1,4 polygalactouronic acid residues and which is responsible for the reduction of the gold salt, leading to the formation of pectin capped gold nanoparticles. So again, we have done the characterization and used the surface plasmon, the HRTM and the XRD studies, and the particles were around 14 nanometer particle size. The drug loading is the same. We did by incubation method, and the drug essentially doxorubicin hydrochloride is anchored again through the electrostatic charges onto the surface of the gold nanoparticle. Several characterization parameters we have undertaken. The drug loaded were further characterized for surface plasmon, HRTM, size. Stability studies were done. The stability of doxorubicin again here was also established for a period of 3 months at a storage condition of 4 degrees. Drug release again similar to the earlier case, we got a pH dependent release again, which is of benefit here because once the receptor mediated endocytosis occur, the endosome has the acidic pH and that is where the drug release majorly is going to occur. So a pH dependent release was observed. The biocompatibility we have done by the simple hemolytic studies, and here we have seen that whereas doxorubicin is quite toxic, the percent hemolysis is around 19%. The pectin reduced gold nanoparticles are having almost negligible hemolysis, whereas the doxorubicin when loaded onto the pectin reduced nanoparticles have considerably reduced hemolysis. So this reduction in hemolysis is because of the inherent biocompatibility of the pectin reduced gold nanoparticles, which lead to the shielding of the terminal amino groups of the doxorubicin, which are responsible for the toxicity. So the in vitro cytotoxicity studies were done in two types of cell lines, the HEPG2 which are known to be SGPR positive and the HeLa cell line which are SGPR negative. Because we wanted to establish the mechanism, that is the reason we have gone for these two types of cell lines, one which is SGPR positive and the other which is SGPR negative. So the pectin reduced gold nanoparticles did not show any toxicity here. A concentration dependent decrease in the cell viability obviously was observed, and the viability of HEPG2 as well as the HeLa cell line both decreased with the increase in the DOX concentration. So here you can see the IC50 values will help us to understand better. The HEPG2 cell lines are the SGPR positive cell lines and the HeLa cell lines are the SGPR negative cell lines. So here you can see that the DOX has activity IC50 of 4.11, whereas in case of DOX anchored onto the pectin reduced gold nanoparticle have considerably lower IC50 values. Okay, so this is a very significant reduction that is occurred when the DOX was loaded onto the pectin reduced gold nanoparticle in case of HEPG2 which is acyloglycoprotein positive. However, in case of HeLa cell line, there was not much change in the IC50 value because these are acyloglycoprotein negative cell lines. So this essentially demonstrated the targeting potential of the pectin reduced gold nanoparticle to the acyloglycoprotein receptors. The mechanism of the uptake by was carried out in taking the HEPG2 cell lines which are acyloglycoprotein positive, and different treatments we have given. The one is to keep the cells at very low temperature 4 degrees Celsius and to add sodium azide to the cells, so that causes for ATP depletion. Now remember, because this is an active process, the uptake through the acyloglycoprotein is an active process. When we lower the temperature and there is ATP depletion in the system, in the media, obviously the relative cellular amount of gold that was observed was much less, because in this case the uptake does not occur, and you can see here this is the control, and whereas in 4 degrees and ATP depletion media the amount has considerably reduced, amount of gold taken up by the cells. So this indicated that there is an active receptor mediated endocytosis. Also, when we added sucrose and potassium depletion to the medium, it established that it is a clathrin dependent, because clathrin mediated processes require the sucrose and potassium. So this clearly demonstrates the active uptake of the pectin reduced gold nanoparticles by the clathrin mediated endocytosis. Further, to explore the mechanism of uptake, we did the studies in the presence and absence of galactose. So here in the HEPG2 cell line, in the graph A, this is the blue bar stands for plain DOX and the orange bar stands for the DOX loaded onto the pectin reduced gold nanoparticles. So in the absence of galactose, you can see here this A is for in the absence of galactose and here it is in the presence of galactose, which made a change in case of HEPG2 cell line which are acyloglycoprotein positive. But in case of HeLa cell lines which are acyloglycoprotein negative, the presence or absence of galactose did not result in any change in the amount of DOX that was uptaken by the cells. So this clearly indicated that the uptake of pectin gold nanoparticles was through acyloglycoprotein receptor mediated. So this is again just the comparison between the HEPG2 and the HeLa. Here you can see in the absence of galactose, there is considerable uptake. But when you add galactose, galactose is going to compete with the pectin for the receptor. And selectively, obviously, the galactose will saturate the surface. And that is why the amount of gold nanoparticle uptake is going to reduced. But whereas in case of HeLa cell line, which is acyloglycoprotein negative, absence or presence of this galactose does not matter on the uptake of the gold. The confocal laser scanning microscopy again confirmed the preferential uptake of this DOX loaded pectin reduced gold nanoparticles. You can see here this A is for the control, B is for plain DOX, and C is for the DOX loaded pectin reduced gold nanoparticles, and D is for the DOX loaded pectin reduced gold nanoparticle in presence of galactose. So you can see here that in presence of galactose the intensity has considerably reduced, whereas in absence of galactose you can see that the intensity of uptake is very high. So it establishes that they were preferentially taken up to a greater extent as compared to plain DOX. So in a nutshell, if you compare these two, the disease in the case study 1 was hepatitis B. Here it was in the second case study, it is the hepatocellular carcinoma. The target site here is the liver hepatocytes. Here they are the hepatocarcinoma cells. The drug in the first case is lamivudine, in the second case doxorubicin. Here the reducing, stabilizing and the targeting agent is the glycyrrhizine, and here it is the pectin. In the first study, we could successfully demonstrate that the lamivudine loaded glycyrrhizine reduced gold nanoparticles were preferentially localized in liver compared to the citrate reduced gold nanoparticles. And in the second case study, we could demonstrate that the DOX loaded pectin gold nanoparticles were preferentially taken up by the hepatocarcinoma cell via the acyloglycoprotein receptor by the receptor mediated endocytosis. So coming to I will touch upon this aspect because of lack of time. There is so much being said about mucosal vaccine delivery. So we have done some work to demonstrate the use of these gold nanoparticles for mucosal vaccine delivery as well as for transmucosal delivery of insulin. Now mucosal vaccine delivery is pretty tricky because you need to maintain a balance between immunostimulation and immunotoxicity, and that balance is pretty critical because any imbalance can lead to either side situation which can be detrimental. There is a recent review which has reported that these gold nanoparticles have been explored for several viral antigens, and you can see here that they have been used for developing the vaccines for even severe acute respiratory syndrome related to coronavirus. Now these are